What's up everybody, this is Jared and I'm back here again on my channel, Keystonecarry, to bring you a brand new to me rifle and brand new to the industry rifle, sort of. It's been around for a little bit and you've probably heard about it and you've seen teasers about it, but it is finally out on the market and I got one sent to me to do an evaluation, some testing, and then ultimately offer my opinion on this platform to you guys, my loyal viewers. Without further ado, I introduce you to IWI's new Tavor 7 .308 caliber bullpup rifle. Let's get right into this video, guys. I'm going to be the first to admit that I have kind of a special affinity with 308. I've been around 308 a lot. I've done a lot of shooting with 308s, gone hunting for many years with a 308 bolt action rifle. As soon as I knew I was going to get the Tavor 7, I got super pumped because I knew that it would be a great comparison to maybe bridge the gap between my Ruger American rifle that I have right here and my Sig Sauer 716 Patrol, which you see sitting on the bench behind me. The first time I heard and saw any information about the Tavor 7, my mind automatically assumed, hey, this is not going to be a precision rifle. This is going to somehow bridge the gap between a precision bolt-action rifle and a more precision-oriented AR platform like the Sig 716 that I have behind me. I just want to give you the rundown of my experience with the Tavor 7 from the day I unboxed it to the time that I went out on the range the first time, put it on sandbags, zeroed in the optics, and then ultimately what led up to my final range day where I really dug in and really got an opinion about this rifle, because on that range day I put about 400 to 500 rounds in about 3 hours. My shoulder felt it. Before I get into any of my opinion, I really want to run through a bunch of specs on this rifle. I think it's only fair to dig into that. Right out of the gate, it's pretty obvious. This is not your standard AR-10 platform. This is a bullpup rifle, which means that the action is back here behind all of the trigger controls. It's pretty unique, especially in a 308 platform, because it's going to really balance out the weight. And this thing is heavy. It's more than 9 pounds without a magazine. But I'll show you right here. There's an SR25 magazine, 25 rounds of 308 in this thing. And with how it's designed, it is easy to hold, it's easy to point, and it's easy to shoot. It really, truly does not feel like an ultra heavy 308, but it is. You do feel it over time. The Tavor 7 has a 16.5-inch barrel. It comes with a standard muzzle flash brake compensator thing on the end of the barrel. Honestly, I would compare it more to a brake. It was pretty obnoxious. It barked really loud. So it is a quote-unquote full-length carbine. It is legal length. This is not an SBR, even though it is oftentimes shorter than most pistols and SBR platforms because of the fact that it is a bullpup. You'll notice on the top, it is a flat top receiver. It has a Picatinny rail the entire length of this frame. On the sides, there's M-LOK sections, so you could mount flashlights offset, or you could mount anything up on top of the Picatinny rail. If you press this button on the bottom, you'll actually be able to slide off this little handguard, and there's a Picatinny rail section on the bottom as well. There are quick disconnect points on the side of the stock, and up here by your cheek, and that's going to allow you to run either single or 2-point slings, so you are right out of the gate ready to roll with a sling of your choice. The charging handle is up here on the left side. You can switch that around. This is a 100% fully ambidextrous rifle, which means you have a mag release on both sides, and you just simply have to reach forward with your pointer finger. You'll find the mag release. The safety can be activated by either side. You can lock the bolt back, which is kind of neat. It's pretty fun, actually. You can just smack it forward and send her home. Let me try it for you. Oh, it just feels good. As I was saying, it's fully ambidextrous. You can switch the charging handle from one side to the other. You can also switch the ejection port, just like the X95. So this is essentially a beefed up X95. But either way, the bolt carrier assembly, all of the frame, all the components up here are beefier, and it feels beefier than the X95. On the end of the barrel, it is a 5/8 by 24 thread pitch. So you can attach any modern 30 caliber muzzle device that you would like. If you like running big obnoxious brakes, by all means, just don't shoot with me because you're going to make me upset. As you probably already know, it is a piston operated system. It's a 4-position piston, and they designed it specifically so you could take a 308 caliber bullet and actually rotate it through the different positions. One of the traits that I always hear people talk about with bullpups is the trigger, and more often than not, bullpups really come out of the box with a cruddy trigger. I'm going to say that this trigger is definitely, in my opinion, a good trigger. Let's just show you this trigger. So, it's clear. There's definitely take up, but then a clean break. The reset's nice and short. Show you from this side. From my finger meter, I would guess that that's about 5 or 6 pound pull. The bolt inside the Tavor 7 is very similar to an AR-15. It looks very much the same. It rotates and locks into place. It has lugs that will actually go into the barrel and rotate and lock. One of the cool features about the bolt is it has dual ejectors. It really freaking throws 308 brass, like far. Like, move your vehicles really far away, because when you shoot this thing, it's going to throw brass like 30 feet into them. And that's no joke. One of my other favorite aspects about the Tavor 7 is the fact that it accepts SR25 pattern magazines. And I was always bummed out whenever I was looking at 308s and they used other patterns of magazines that did not interchange with the SR25 style of mag. To me, the SR25 is great because it's affordable. You can find them everywhere. And they have 20 round, 25 round standard options, and you can get them in other round counts as well. They're robust, durable, and like I said, they're very inexpensive. They're just like a PMag. So I was happy to see that the Tavor 7 retained that functionality of using SR25 mags. I already touched on the overall length of the rifle. It's sitting right around 26 3/4 of an inch. That's compact. And as you can see from some of the videos that I was panning through, shooting between my SIG 716 and the Tavor 7, the Tavor 7 is shorter, even with my suppressor threaded on, than my SIG 716 Patrol. And that's really impressive when you think about it. Now we're going to dive into the barrel. And this is where I looked at the specs and I was like, really? Why would you do that? And bear with me and I'll explain. The Tavor 7 comes with a chrome-lined 1 in 12 twist barrel. And for those of you that shoot a lot of 308 or try to do your own hand loads or are going for precision, you might be scratching your head and saying, why 1 in 12? I don't have a solid answer on that. I suspect that it's probably because the Scar Heavy has a 1 in 12 twist barrel, but to me it doesn't really make any sense. And the reason why is when I'm hand loading, I often load heavier bullets. And what I have found in my experiences, and this is not gospel, but in my own personal experiences, when I load heavier match grade bullets and I'm trying to really refine accuracy in a rifle, typically I like a 1 in 10 twist barrel. I like a little bit faster spin on the bullet, and it seems to stabilize it a little. So my preconceived notion with the Tavor 7 was right out of the box, this thing's not going to be accurate. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, but I'm just sharing with you my first thoughts right away when I saw 1 in 12. I was concerned about the accuracy. And we'll dive into that a little bit and talk about it in a short amount, but I'm going to go through the rest of the specs of this rifle. At an MSRP of almost $2,100, I think it's very important for me as an influencer, as someone doing a review, to really dive into this rifle and find out, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is this rifle really the best option based on its role and its capabilities versus buying something like this SIG 716 Patrol behind me or a PWS piston-operated 308 that I know you could probably find cheaper than the entry price of a Tavor 7. And I feel like it's my duty to dig into that and be 100% honest and upfront with you. So there's a couple things that I'm going to point out that I really don't like about this rifle. There's a couple things that I really do enjoy about it. The optics that I opted to run was the Strike Eagle 1-6 on top. I think the Strike Eagle is a great optic. It's a great budget optic. If you are looking to have the ability to run 1 power or 6, it's a great solution. It gives you close range out to medium distances. I'm not a huge fan of the reticle itself. I feel like it's super thick and blocky, but when you think about what this scope was designed for, it kind of makes sense and it's okay in my opinion. Off to the side, I have a Vortex mount and I have a Vortex Venom 3 MOA red dot. I have this offset so that I could get quick transitions up close, and I did a bunch of drills where I was doing transitions or reloads or working VTAC barricades, and that's where this offset red dot really shines. Now it is a little bit more awkward running a Bullpup like that, being able to twist to the side. It's got a lot of stuff going on here. It's a little thick in the hips, if you know what I'm saying. But either way, it is fairly intuitive to get behind the dot. You kind of have to choke down pretty far. Definitely not as easy as I would say for a regular AR-15 getting an offset dot. I wanted to have the ability to quickly engage a target at close range and possibly keep my scope on 2 to 4 power so I could engage those medium distances quicker. My relationship with the Tavor 7 started out with a conversation with the folks over at IWI. We talked about it a little bit. They agreed to send me one to do a test and evaluation on and provide you guys some content and hopefully some enjoyment. And from there, I just waited. I'm a licensed dealer. They shipped it direct to my door. When I received the rifle, immediately I'm trying to absorb as much information about the packaging, about what comes with the rifle, and all of those good juicy details as I'm trying to build my first impression of the Tavor 7. What came in the box was pretty standard. It came with one SR25 magazine. Also included in the box were those sling swivels for the quick attach points on the stock. There was obviously a manual, gun lock. Essentially, it came with everything you would expect it to come with and nothing more. As soon as I got that rifle, opened it up and looked at everything, I ordered a bunch of 308. I ordered over 1,000 rounds of 308. It was a mix of different ammunition. I had a bunch of hand loads that I had already loaded up that work well on my Ruger American Predator. I also ordered some M80 ball ammo, which was 147 grain, full metal jacket, ammunition, and then I also got some steel case 165 grain soft points. And I wanted to see a broad spectrum of ammunition and see how it performed in the Tavor 7. As I said before, right after that, I mounted up the Strike Eagle 1-6 and I mounted up my offset red dot. And then I was ready to get to the range. My first day on the range, all I did was put it on sandbags, try to lock it in as tight as I could on the bench, and I just did a rough 0. I didn't look for accuracy. All I wanted to do was make sure at 50 yards I was hitting paper where I wanted to be, and then I was reaching out and smacking the steel at 100 and 200 yards. And the reason I did a rushed rough 0 was because I had an event in Ohio that following weekend, and I wanted to get this rifle out and put it in the hands of as many people as possible. We went out to Ohio. I put about 400 rounds through it on the range, and I had 0 malfunctions. Everybody that shot this gun loved it. It was a great test for some new products that we were developing for TA targets because it's 308, it's putting a lot of energy downrange. So all in all, it was a great run, great first impression on the range. I got back from Ohio and then immediately I wanted to get back out to the range and do some accuracy testing. So what I did was I grabbed my Boscobel Belloc bipod and then I attached it to the Picatinny rail section on the bottom of my Tavor. Right after that, I pulled the old compensator off. I unthreaded it. I threaded it back on with my ASR flash hider from Silencer Co. And the Tavor barrel is very similar to the Galil in the fact that it has a little locking collar that you can actually tighten up against your ASR flash hider or whatever muzzle device you end up using on your particular rifle. It locks it in there tight, and I did not feel the need to use Rockset because of the fact that it had that locking collar on there. Having the ASR flash hider on the end of my barrel really gives me versatility because now I can thread my Silencer Co. Omega suppressor onto the end. Just simply grab my 308 round, adjust it to the suppress setting, and I'm good to go, ready to rock and roll quietly. After I put the rifle in sandbags and I got my rough 0 down, I started to shoot this thing freehand just to get a feel for the recoil impulse, to feel how this thing feels in your hands. This is about the time that I scratched my head for a second time with this rifle. Don't think it's a bad rifle because of this, but it doesn't make sense to me that you would sell a 308 rifle with no butt pad. It really does not make any sense to me, especially when we see the X95 has a really nice cush butt pad. So that to me tells me that they know that it should have it, but for some reason didn't include it. And I can attest that after 400 rounds on a range in one day, your shoulder will feel it. But on top of that, there's no good reference point when you're pushing out and trying to get this rifle into place. You really don't have any kind of great point to reference off of to shove that thing back into your shoulder. So I found myself stumbling a little bit as I'm throwing the rifle forward, getting it locked in, getting the good cheek weld that I needed to do right away. Part of that's because it's a bullpup and I'm not 100% used to it, but at the same time, it's a detail that I really think was overlooked, and I think that it's important to factor that into our decision when we're talking about the Tavor and whether it's worth the price tag that comes with it. The weapon cycles very smooth. Racking the slide from the charging handle, shooting it, feeling the recoil impulse. It's not a snappy rifle. It doesn't have a lot of muzzle rise. It doesn't flip up and you don't lose your sight picture very much at all. It pushes straight back and it's a nice feeling being able to stay on target very easily with a 308. It feels more similar to a 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun than I would say a 308 bolt gun. Shooting freehand with the Tavor, making contact on TA target steel from 50 to 100 yards is a piece of cake. And what I found is that I could actually make more accurate shots longer with the Tavor versus my 7.16 patrol rifle because of the fact that the weight is distributed so far back into your shoulder. After just putting a couple slow shots through and a couple magazines, I started to just mess around with some 1R1 drills just to see how it felt. And I was very, 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 very surprised with how fast I could reload right out of the gate with the Tavor 7. I think that a lot of that is attributed to the fact that the controls make sense on this. The mag release is just like an AR-15. Your pointer finger goes forward, you bump it, and through some kind of voodoo black magic, you press this button here, and the magazine lever drops over here. I've never taken this thing apart to find out how, but I'm telling you, it's gotta be some crazy black magic. The reloads I was doing were from my Fury holster mag carrier that I was just wearing on the outside of my belt. Besides the fact that the magazine goes in a different place than an AR-15, it was very intuitive to reload this gun. In 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and this was mixed from M80 to 150 grain SST to 165 grain steel case soft point, I had 5 malfunctions. All 5 of these malfunctions were with the steel case ammunition, and 3 of them I determined to be my fault. One of the other 2 was a failure to eject, and another one was a failure to fire. And I believe both of those were ammunition based as to why I saw issues with them. The other 3 were because I forgot to change the gas port setting back to standard after pulling my suppressor off. As soon as I corrected my error, it started running perfectly fine again and I had no more malfunctions for the rest of that range day. All in all, I would say that I had a very good first range impression of this thing. The thing that stood out to me most as a negative against this rifle was the lack of a butt pad. Up until this point, I had no other negatives other than the fact that it's a heavy rifle, and I just started to really enjoy getting into this Tavor 7. After I got back from the Ohio trip, my goal was to actually print this thing on paper and find out what is the accuracy potential of this rifle. The extent of my accuracy testing was off of the Boscobel Bell Lock bipod with their 3-claw feet setup, and then I put sandbags under the stock to keep everything planted. I recognize that there's limitations to this kind of style of testing for accuracy. I also recognize that the optic that I chose, the 1:6 Strike Eagle, is not really geared toward being a precision optic. The reticle itself is extremely thick, and then making distant precision shots is very difficult with this optic. So I just want to remind you that what I found is not a perfect world scenario, but I will say that my findings with accuracy on this rifle are very consistent with what other people were finding. And as a control method, I used the same ammunition with the same bipod, same sandbags, with my SIG 716 Patrol to compare the two together. And what I found from this rifle confirmed my initial fears about that 1 in 12 twist barrel, and I'd like to go over that with you right now. When zeroing at 50 yards just to get it on paper, the groups looked decent. They were about an inch group. Sometimes you'd have a floater that would be out at about 1 1/4 inches, 1.5 inches, but nothing was too crazy there. Some of my groups were a little tighter with the M80. I actually thought this rifle was going to be a really good performer after I grouped it on paper at 50 yards. But when I backed up to 100 yards and I really started putting ammunition downrange, I started to notice that group opened up tremendously. At 100 yards, I was finding about 2-inch to 3-inch groups with this Tavor 7. I shot it multiple times, and that's what actually pushed me towards grabbing the 716 and putting it on the bench to try the same method for grouping and then to compare the two rifles together. And the 716 did outperform the 7 in the accuracy department. While we are on the topic of accuracy, I wanted to show you guys some paper targets that I shot with both the SIG 716 and also the Tavor. And it's really going to paint the picture of how much more accurate the 716 was with the same ammo and the same rest setup as the Tavor 7. So up top here, this is the 716. This was my group with my 150 grain SST ammunition. That's about an inch when you're looking at that 5-round group. Right here is a 5-round group with the 165 grain steel soft point ammunition, and that's impressive. That again is about an inch with 5 rounds, and 3 of them are stacked right there, the 4th one touching. That's an insane group. For real, with steel case ammunition. Right here was my M80 147 grain ammunition. That's about an 1.5 inch group. So this kind of shows you how the SIG was faring with that grouping. Now onto the Tavor 7. You can see, and this was 100 yards, you can see 4 rounds right here. This is M80 ball ammunition, 147 grain, and I flew my 5th round here. Now that was probably me. I would hope that it wouldn't vary that much between all of those. I mean, the group really widens up with this flyer, but I'm going to write that off and say that I probably somehow made that one fly that far. I also got a chance to experience this rifle laying prone off of my Boscobel bipod, and what I can tell you is what felt pretty punishing against your shoulder. Upright, when you lay down prone, it's even more noticeable, more apparent. The gun itself feels fine prone. I was a little bit concerned about the magazine where it's located, that it would dig into the dirt with a 25 round mag and it would feel goofy. None of that was an issue. The controls worked fine. Everything else was fine. Laying prone and getting hit with a piece of plastic on the back was less than ideal in my opinion. As a closing for my last range day, I guess I would describe it as I was kind of disappointed with the accuracy, but I wasn't surprised. Now that I went through all of those different experiences, I ran through the specs and all that good stuff, hopefully this will help you make a better educated decision as to whether or not the Tavor 7 fits in your lineup. So just running down through the pros of this rifle, it's built by IWI. Some of the other traits that I really like about it is it's a piston gun. It runs fairly clean. It doesn't blow a ton of gas back in your face. It's a super compact package, as I already talked about. With the suppressor on this thing, it is still shorter than my SIG 716 Patrol, and that blows my mind. It utilizes SR25 magazines. Again, a huge selling point to me. Out of the box, especially considering this thing is a bullpup, I really enjoy the trigger. I think that IWI did a really good job with it. I really think it's awesome with the Tavor lineup that it is fully ambidextrous. We're not talking just being able to switch the safety around. We're talking about being able to change which side you charge the weapon from, which side the spent cases eject from. It already has an ambidextrous mag release and safety, so to me, those are huge bonus points. If you're a lefty, you're going to have a ton of appreciation for the fact that they had that much forethought in the design and engineering of this rifle. Some of the cons of the Tavor 7. It's heavy. Let's just be real. Any 308 platform, for the most part, there's a couple AR platforms out there that are super light, but pretty much every single AR platform that's 308 or anything similar to this is going to be heavy. I harped on it a lot. 1 in 12 twist barrel. I just don't like that. I really am disappointed that they did not run with a 1 in 10 twist barrel for the Tavor 7. And maybe eventually down the road they'll hear all of those reviews and the people saying that, and maybe you'll get a Tavor with a 1 in 10 twist barrel. Time will tell. Accuracy of this thing, to me, being about 2.5 MOA, it's borderline not acceptable. I'm going to just throw that out there. For me, if I'm going to spend $2,100, I would expect that rifle to perform. Now, my plan is to actually spend a lot of time with this rifle on accuracy, work up hand loads that really work well for it, and try some off-the-shelf, high-end match ammunition to see if we can really tighten this thing up. Although I love the modern design of a bullpup, it really does have its limitations. I really enjoy an AR-15 with a folding stock adapter. I love being able to throw them in backpacks and carry them around discreetly, go back and forth from the range with nothing more than a backpack. Bullpup is going to have very limited modularity in the fact that it doesn't have a traditional rail. Above all the others is the fact that just look at how much space an optic, an offset dot, and a scope take up on the rail. You only have about 4 inches up front, and yes, you do have M-LOK sections, but you're already super condensed when you're holding this rifle. Your hands are very, very close together. When you added the bipod on the bottom, it got really kind of funky to shoot with it because I had to have my hand kind of on this front trigger guard instead of actually being able to go out to this little grip stop and hold it out a little further. So there are limitations and there's things you're going to have to work around when you first get into this rifle and you're learning how to use it well. One of the other things I noticed because of how close the barrel gets to this foregrip is this foregrip gets hot. I don't know how many of you are going to go out with 10 magazines full of 308 and just run them through the gun, but I can tell you after that much ammo, this thing gets really, really hot. Shooting it prone was a little bit funky, but it wasn't as bad as what I anticipated. But I suspect that one of the solutions for making this thing feel good shooting prone would be to put a nice butt pad on the thing. But I've already beat that horse till it was dead twice over, so I'm moving on. What role does this rifle play? So when I think of the Tavor 7, I think of a DMR. I think of something that would be a mid-range capable rifle that would be anywhere from 50 yards out to 200 to 300 yards. So in my opinion, setting it up just like I did or very similar would make a ton of sense. Put on some kind of an optic that gives you the 1 power capability, maybe up to a 4 to an 8 power, so that you could have the ability to reach out far if you needed to, but then you could also dial it back and use it on 1 power. I like the idea of an offset dot because, again, I really don't think that this rifle was meant to be a precision rifle at all. To me, I see this rifle being among a unit, being able to have a higher powered rifle on tap to be able to punch through different barriers and just put down more power when needed. And yes, it can put down accurate shots at distance, but it does have its limitations in that role. Because of how compact it is, because of that 1 in 12 twist barrel, because the stock has no cheek riser, it has no butt pad, because of how compact and condensed this thing is even on a bipod, I really don't think it fills the precision rifle realm well. I don't even think I'd call it a mid to long range rifle. I really think it's just a short to mid range rifle, and I think that that was the design behind the Tavor 7 and the intentions of its use by IWI. Overall, I just wanted to give another quick brief rundown of where I'm at with this rifle. I'm still very happy with it. I definitely don't want you to think that I'm beating it up and I'm calling it trash or calling it bad, because I think it is an extremely, extremely high quality rifle. I think that it is built for a specific purpose. If you use it outside of that intended purpose, you probably will be disappointed with it. If you show up at a 1,000 yard to 1,500 yard match and you're trying to shoot really accurate groups with this rifle, you're probably going to lose that match. But I also understand the reality that my testing was limited, and I really want to hammer that home. I did not put this thing in any kind of sled to lock this thing down. I didn't develop hand loads for it. I didn't go out and buy super precision match ammunition. I wanted to run the ammunition that I felt was most likely for you to put through your rifle. And after shooting it all through the 7.16 and seeing tighter groups with the 7.16 versus the Tavor 7, I know that there's a better accuracy potential out of the 7 with a little bit more refining from the IWI team. I really believe that it has that legendary IWI quality. I think that it is a product that is very refined. I think it still has room to be more refined, but I think it is a very well built package and very well rounded. Guys, I am truly honored to be putting out videos like this for you. I'm really trying to step up my game with my lighting, with my audio, with my video quality. So make sure you're leaving me comments below and let me know what you think about my videos. If this is your first time watching any of my content, please do me a favor. Like this video, leave me a comment below, and subscribe. And while you're subscribing, make sure you click that little bell so that you're notified when I post my other videos. I've said it from the beginning, I have a full-time job growing my business, TA Targets, so unfortunately I don't put out content every single week. I try to do it bi-weekly, but some weeks it ends up getting missed. But I will put out regular content, and it is going to be good content. And I have a lot of topics coming forward that I think a lot of you are going to be very excited to learn more about. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Until next time, stay well, stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next video.